Need all these signs. Good. How have you been, man? Yeah, somewhat. Man. Hey, Kent. Good to see you, Frank. Hey, Jane. She's there. She's been there for 4 hours or so. Been shopping already, you know. Yes, that's right. That's right. That is for sure.
Kitty gonna be here? Don't know. I'll keep this in straight.
Sure, I got it under control. How y'all doing in your tiny house?
Well, she still let it stay there. That's a good sign. And I think things are fine. The move was really hard. But now that we're there.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. Somewhere. They're on one of these. There they are. And when I have to call this meeting, please welcome. Before we talk the agenda, I'm just gonna say, we're gonna watch the agenda. So we don't have to Yeah, I like streamline things for fun. Me too. I've been waiting 2 days to hear about my secretary. He travels so much. Yeah. Folks, according to my watch, we've got 6 o'clock and we'll go ahead and get this meeting to order. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. This is an extended forum for us tonight. We normally start our forum at 6:30, but we're going to have a special presentation tonight and do some questions and answers on bears. So before we start the meeting, let's just bow our heads in a moment of silence. Amen. And before we adopt the agenda, I'm just going to ask the commissioners if you would let us swap things around a little bit. Instead of doing public comments last, I'd like to do public comments first and give those people a chance to tell their stories about the bear, and then we'll do the answers afterwards, if that's all right with y'all. So can I have a motion to adopt that change in the agenda?
Also moved.
Have a motion from Commissioner Alexander. Do I have a second? Second. Who was that? The new guy. The new guy. Thanks, Mason. Second by Mason Blake. Any questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes carry. The agenda is adopted. So we're going to start off with public comment. Anybody that has a public comment pertaining to the bears, I'd like to get the bear stuff off the agenda first. Mary?
Yeah, I just needed a clarification. Is there going to be time for public?
Yes, I'm going to
comment?
stop at
None?
about 15 or 20 minutes before the
Thank
end
you for clarifying.
so that we can get our regular forum in there. Now, who would like to talk about bears? Bears? Nobody wants to tell their story? The Rogers are here. Come on. There you are.
My name is Arrington Cox, and I want to speak on behalf of the bears and the dogs and the people who enjoy that sport. I know you can't have bears running through the town of Montreat. I also know that the bear is up there on the mountain, and I'm so sorry, I know better than that. If the bear is up there on the mountain and he's 200 yards up there, and there's a bear dog up there, and he catches the scent, he's going to go after the bear. That's what they're bred to do. So I just, I pray for the bears and the dogs and the people who love the sport, and I know that this can be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You'll give us your name and where you live?
My name is Jolie Rogers. I live at 97. Yes, I live at. Okay. Hi, my name is Jolie Rogers. I live at 97 Shenandoah Terrace. And I was one of the persons who brought up the bear issue last month because we had an incident at our home where there were some dogs who were kind of out of control. You have the video. And with regards to this issue, I appreciate you taking this seriously. I am not, my husband and I are not anti-hunters. I grew up in South Mississippi with hunters. They did not, however, use dogs. So this is kind of a new experience for me. And the experience that we've had with the dogs and the 1.5 years that we've lived here has been a bit discouraging. It seems like the dogs were random and or uncontrolled. You know, if you have an animal that you're training for a specific task, it should be in better control, in my opinion. So the concern that I have with that is if you're expanding the bear regulations, like I've seen that happening in other parts of Boone County, how is this going to be controlled, you know, with regards to the dogs? You know, perhaps the captain that is here can enlighten us on that. As a homeowner, I'm really anxious to hear this, you know, because this is a daily thing for us. We live here full time. I want to understand how to, you know, fit into this community and support it, but also be critical of it, you know, and how it operates and so forth. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Rusty Douglas. I'm a relatively new resident here, live at 227 Alabama Terrace, right behind the post office. I had my grandkids up here after Christmas, 2 little girls, 5 and 3. And I could hear the dogs chasing the bears. We'd been down in the playground the day before. We weren't down there then, fortunately, but there's nothing good that can happen with dogs and a bear running through a playground on a national holiday. It doesn't take much vivid imagination to think of some terrible things happening and somebody getting hurt and Montreat making the national news in a very bad light. Surely there is some way to prevent that. I don't know exactly how, but certainly within the town confines, the town limits, there should not be bears and dogs running where there are children in a playground. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Rogers. I live at 97 Shenandoah Terrace. I'm the one that made the video. I've got tons of videos of the bears. Bears just, you know, I think we're on, you know, Bear Highway where our house is. I mean, they're almost every day. They come through our property. The only time I've ever been worried is the dogs. And I've got hundreds of hours of videos where the bears are just peacefully walking by, you know, and I've been out there. When they've been out there, I've not been worried. The only time I've ever been worried about living in Montreat was when I had 12 raging wild dogs running through our property and then mauling the bear on their way doing it. And the hunters were there and did not have any control. I mean, one hunter got 1 out of like 10 or 12 dogs. The other dogs ran off. I was helping to run them off of the bear. And I was told later on when I was talking to the police that what I did was dangerous and that the owner of the hunting dog will typically not try to get in between the dog and the bear, which says that even if the owner of the dog thinks that it's dangerous, well, then it's clearly dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Philip Arnold. I live year round at 530 McGill Drive. I'm here tonight hoping to get some clarification on what is the understanding between the bear hunters and Montreat and who can go onto whose land. A few years ago, I had an out of town guest who said, let's take a hike. Well, my home is up Graybeard Trail, so we walked on up to the end of the road there. And then I said, let's go up and find the waterfall. Well, we didn't get halfway there when around the corner came a man with 2 rifles over his shoulder and 3 dogs on leashes. And he said, I don't think you want to see what's coming behind me. Well, surely coming down the trail right behind him was a beautiful big black bear dead. It was being dragged down. And I said, wait, are you hunting on Montreat property? And he said, well, we can't control where the dogs tree the bear. We just then go and we shoot the bear out of the tree. And our understanding anyway is that you guys get to hike on our property and that we can do this on your property. So I was just left with a lot of confusion, and tonight I'm hoping to get some clarification about, what is the relationship, the agreement between these 2 entities. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jim Gibbs, and I'm the president of the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club and also the Mill Creek Wildlife Club, which owns approximately 1,300 acres of land extending approximately 7 miles from Montreat to the Blue Ridge Parkway. Most people know this as the Old Toll Road. The Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club leases the land and hunts the bears on it. We also maintain the toll road and the trails that extend through our property. Over the last the Mill Creek Wildlife Club and the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club have enjoyed the use of this land since the 1940s. Over the last 70 plus years, we have worked to maintain a good relationship with the town of Montreat, Montreat College, and the Montreat Assembly. The late Reverend Billy Graham was known to have enjoyed this property and even hunted with us on occasion. Today, we continue to allow the public to use our land for hiking and recreational pursuits year-round. The Old Toll Road also connects with numerous trails extending into the Montreat Wilderness and the Pisgah National Forest. It is not uncommon to see numerous parties of hikers, joggers, mountain bikers, and families enjoying the toll road on a Saturday or Sunday year-round, but especially in the fall when the colors and views are truly spectacular. The property is enjoyed by people from around the state, country, and even foreign countries. Bear hunting has evolved drastically over the years. I've been hunting these mountains my entire life. I can truly say that there are more bears now than there ever have been before. This is in part due to the efforts of bear hunters and their proactive bear management policies. Our club uses game cameras to monitor the bear population. It is our club policy to only harvest mature male bears over 200 pounds. The use of game cameras allows us to see the bears prior to releasing our hunting dogs. This helps avoid running small young bears and female bears with cubs. While we cannot keep bears or dogs from going into Montreat, it is our club policy to not hunt in residential neighborhoods or the town. However, it may sometimes be necessary to retrieve dogs in town. I want everyone to know that we do not hunt or harvest bears in town and will not go on posted private property to collect dogs without the property owner's permission. Also, While we may be the most visible and well-known hunting club, it is important for everybody to know that the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club is not the only group to hunt bears in the Montreat area. It is my belief that the recent problems have come from other less responsible hunters. We are not the hunters shown in the video. It is very important to our club that we remain good neighbors with Montreat and its citizens. We respect the rights of property owners and the Montreat citizens. Being a good neighbor, we keep our property open for public use and enjoyment. We also allow numerous civic events and entities to use our property for their enjoyment. A couple of these include the Swannanoa Valley Museum and their annual four-wheel drive across the toll road each October. Also, the last Saturday of this month will mark the 24th year the Black Mountain Marathon Mount Mitchell Challenge will use the toll road for their run. This run starts in Black Mountain and goes all the way along the toll road to the Blue Ridge Parkway and back. In closing, the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club will endeavor to continue to remain good neighbors with Montreat and its residents. We are always open to suggestions from the public to improve this relationship. It is our club policy to obey all local and state laws and regulations, and our club strictly works to support and enforce the North Carolina Wildlife Commission's bear hunting regulations, and we will do all we can to respect private property rights and to help maintain the safety of Montreat and its citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Anyone else? Yes, sir. This rather distinguished gentleman is the former mayor of Black Mountain, Mayor Don Collins. Hey, Don.
Hey there, brother. First of all, I've been from first grade through 12th grade here in this valley. I went to Montreat, Anderson College. I've been hunting up on the Old Trail Road for 50 years. Even squirrel hunting when I was going to school, and I've joined the club and hunted off and on with these guys. Thank you. Hunted with these guys, and I've bear hunted all over the state. These gentlemen are the most restrictive and watchful and careful for respecting the rights of this town, Montreat. They go over backwards trying to do the right thing. If the dogs do run, and dogs nor bears can read signs, they don't know where the town limit sign is. And when they go across, it's their practice to just go catch the dogs. Don't judge all bear hunters and assume that they're all the same. These are the most respectful and quality bear hunters that I've ever hunted with. And I hunt down on the East Coast and up here, and I'm telling you, it's a fine bunch of guys up here, and you can tell by their civic duty of how they allow the races to go on, the hiking, the bicycling, and all. It's a two-way street. The last thing that Mountain Mitchell Bear Club is going to want to do is do something to upset residents here in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Who else? Anyone? Okay, since I see no one else stepping up, I want to introduce Captain Andrew Melton. Captain Melton, who's who's with the Law Enforcement Division of the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. Captain Melton, the
Loved it. Thank you for having me join this meeting tonight. My name is Andrew Helton. and I am the captain of District 9, which is the 12 western counties in North Carolina. I work for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. One reason why I'm here for the citizens of Montreat. We represent all the constituents of the state. We're also, we support the bear hunters as well. So any kind of questions that I can answer as far as laws or legalities or concerns, I would love to hopefully provide answers. If not, I can seek out the answers and get back to you later on this. But it's just to give you a little bit of insight about our bear populations in North Carolina. And let me tell you first about what we do before I get into that. But our job as wildlife enforcement officers are that we enforce all hunting, fishing, and boating laws, and then any other misdemeanors that take place in our presence. So we have a wide array of laws that we enforce, from wildlife laws to ginseng poaching laws to trespassing laws to drugs to traffic enforcement. We do a little bit of everything. And so we work all the private lands in North Carolina as well as all the public lands. So we've got a big job. But let me tell you a little bit, first of all, about our bear population in North Carolina. Our bear population is growing very rapidly. Used to, we had bears in the mountains, we had bears in the coast, and now we've got bears pretty much across all 100 counties of North Carolina. Our bear population is growing at a 6% rate every year. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission has a management plan that is currently getting restructured in 2022 to meet the growing numbers of black bears. And so we're trying to seek out as much scientific data from our biologists as well as hunting data to establish maybe better laws, maybe more bag limits, whatever the case may be, allowing opportunity to where some of our bear sanctuaries will be open for hunting, because the only way to control our bear population in North Carolina is actually by the use of hunting. And in Buncombe County, I don't know if you pay attention to some of the local surrounding towns, but Asheville, it is unbelievable how many problem bear calls our officers get. They really can't do much law enforcement because we're dealing with constant bear calls. There are so many bears that are living in the city limits now that it's, they can't be managed, and they don't need to leave anywhere because they've got all the trash and all the supplies that they need right in the city limits. And one reason why it's like that in Asheville is you don't really have any hunting that is close to the city limits. And NC State did a really neat study, and they tagged and put on tracking collars to 40 black bears just to see how often those bears went from the city limits of Asheville into huntable populations. And it was amazing what they found out. The majority of bears actually stayed right there in the city limits the whole time. And I tell you, bears are beautiful. We're all about the protection of black bear. I mean, that's our job, is to protect the animals as well as public safety. But when you get an overabundance of bears within the city limits of any town, it can become a very, very big problem. I will also say this too, before any questions are asked, that in North Carolina, we've never had a death from a black bear. Now, we've had several attacks. We won't hide nothing. It's usually attacks when somebody goes and tries to get one of their little poodles or a little Shih Tzu that a bear is chasing or trying to swat at, and they get between it, and it happens a lot. In and around Asheville, in and around the North Fork watershed, several of the developments there. But you've got the North Fork watershed, it's 20,000 acres, and there's more black bear in the North Fork reservoir per square mile than there is in the Smokies. Okay. And so all these bears come into Woodfin, they come into Asheville, they come into Black Mountain. You're getting the same bears in Montreat. Fortunately, for this town, you do have some hunting that's going on around it, which may be a huge benefactor in the fact of controlling some of these bears. Can they what? The bears? I don't know. This day and time, they possibly could. We do not. And I'm glad you asked it. That's a good question. We have 2 to 3 biologists per district, and each district's about 12 counties. And the problem is our biologists receive, I cannot remember how many calls they receive. It's like our biologists in Buncombe County, I think, received 2,000 to 3,000 problem black bear calls last year in Buncombe County alone. 2,000 to 3,000. And so we don't have the manpower or the equipment to relocate bear. And then also we don't have the land mass to relocate bear. We used to do a program where we would take bears down to Harmon Den and release them that are problem bears. And these bears here would end up back in the same exact place. They're very intelligent and smart animals. And if you take a problem bear out of an area, it creates a problem for somebody else. And so we've learned that the hard way. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't be able to take them across. And each
If
state.
you want to speak, I ask you to raise your hand, be recognized by the speaker, and then speak. Don't just speak out. Okay?
Each state, you wouldn't be able to bring the bear across state lines. And that's a big no-no for any wildlife. And then, of course, another state wouldn't be in open arms of having a problem bear. That's correct.
Use this microphone.
Thank you, Captain, for coming to educate us. Yes, thank you for coming to educate us. I have a soft voice. I apologize. Thank you for coming to educate us. So I have a couple of questions. They're probably pretty dumb. I recently read a book by Mary Roach. It's called Fuzz: When Wildlife Breaks the Law. And the part of it I read related to black bear issues, she described in Aspen, Colorado, to where there's a huge restaurant industry. We also have the college here that's propagating these bears, seeing our area as food. And so what they're doing is they're trying to, versus hunting, which I said I wasn't against, but they're trying to take a community-wide approach to how people store their food, as far as what kind of regulations. Because, the bears, if they see the available food, they're going to go for it. And my thought is, that could be a possibility with here, rather than like slap a fix on the problem. Okay, we're going to just hunt the bears. Let's start at what's drawing them in. People who are using improper garbage disposal techniques, for example. It's kind of a thought.
Well, we do have a program in place called Bear Wise. And so that is being administered in certain areas. I know Highlands and Cashers have that, where they have bear-proof trash cans. That is a huge necessity, especially in an area where the bears aren't hunted, because once a bear starts getting in the trash and the trash pickup's not right and everything, it becomes an eating ground and a breeding ground for black bears. So we do have that program that is out there statewide, and we are trying to introduce that in every town and every location. You can go to ncwildlife.org or contact me, and I can put you in the right direction as far as people to contact there. But we are having some success in Buncombe County with the Bear Wise program. We're seeing black bear problem encounters go down in these areas. Sure.
as I can. So for example, during hunting season, if we see, it's already been established that the bears are a little bit, like the dogs are a little bit out of control. So they don't apparently, if they're on a scent and they're chasing the bear, they can't be stopped, is what my understanding of it is. The gentleman back here, I appreciate your comments. Thank you. But what do we do if that happens on our property? I mean, I have a shotgun. Can I just go outside and discharge it? Or can I shoot at the dogs? I don't want to, but how do I handle it? The stuff that's in your face, we can talk about policy all we want, but
Right, right.
sometimes that happens.
And that's a good question. As a landowner, first of all, you have to abide by the local town ordinances, and so that may become a problem if you can't discharge a firearm within town limits. But as a landowner in North Carolina, you do have the right to protect your property. Okay. And you don't want to feel hostage at your own property. And so that is one good thing about rights, and, everybody's got to respect them as a landowner. And I'm glad we've got that kind of protection. So I would not recommend firing a gun. You can beat on a pot and pan or something maybe to get the dogs out of your yard. But now if a dog was in the process of, killing your chickens or killing your dog, you would have a right as a landowner to dispatch that dog. And then what you would need to do there is follow up and call local authorities on that and come out. One thing you don't want to do is, we've got a law in North Carolina, you don't want to actually catch the dog. We have some people that actually think that they're doing the dog a favor if they catch the dog and remove the tracking collars. We have had a bad problem with that, and we will prosecute individuals that remove the tracking collars and the collars off of dogs, because that is actually inhumane, and therefore the owner won't be able to, track the dog. Which these bear dogs, when they get on a bear, that's what they're trained to do, is to run it until it gets treed, or until the dog tires out. And a lot of times, just because they have a pack of dogs on a bear doesn't mean that they'll actually catch that bear. That we've got some, like I said, some smart and intelligent bears that'll double back and outsmart the dog. So there is a chance for the bear. But as far as dogs running unleashed, Buncombe County has a leash law that says that dogs must be on a leash unless the dogs are participating in a lawful hunt. So as long as it's within season, and the bear hunters have turned the dogs loose in the right areas, they really can't. It's hard for a houndsman to control the dog as far as where it can go. I always had, being a wildlife officer, issues with dogs coming on people's property, and the hunters will tell you the first thing, well, my dogs can't read. And that's true. They can't read, and they try to be as ethical and respectful to the landowner. But, once those dogs are turned loose, those dogs a lot of times have a mind of their own, and they're going to chase the bear. And as long as it's a lawful hunt legally, and they're not hurting your property, there's not a whole lot that you can do lawfully.
Captain Melvin, ask you a question. We as a municipality, we've had a loose agreement. I don't think it's a written agreement, but a loose agreement with the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club for a long time. They hunt up on, like I said, up on the toll road, and I hear them every November or whatever, and they're usually, I can hear the dogs at a great distance. I know they're up on the ridge or beyond. And I've never seen a bear run through the community by one of the dogs, ever. I've seen a collared dog every now and then, but he's usually lost. Is there any way as a municipality we can regulate who goes through our community to hunt.
You could do, you could do a local, town ordinance to which you could mandate who could come and, I mean, the town can do anything like that they would, see fit. It wouldn't be a local law because a local law, you'd have to go through your local legislators. But I'm thinking as far as a town ordinance goes, that the members could decide which hunter that they would want to come
Okay.
and
Because the Mount Mitchell Club has never really hunted in this community residentially.
right.
Ever. I've been
right.
here for over 10 years now and never have they done that.
Nor have we, I checked with the local sergeants, and nor have we gotten any calls
Right.
on, and usually if there's some problems, we'll get calls, and maybe it's people may not know who to call, but now, I don't think my officers have responded up through here this year.
Right. We've never, like I said, we've never had a problem before, and I've done a little bit of investigating on my own and find out that a group of not so respectful hunters came in here this fall with their dogs and hunted in the residential areas and have created this problem. That's why I want to know if we could regulate and give permits or whatever to who can come through and who can't come through.
You could do that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question too, please? Isn't it true that, in fact, there is no right to retrieve your dogs in North Carolina? In other words, they don't have the right
That's
to
correct.
come into the town of Montreat on private property unless there's an arrangement and trespass to get their dogs.
Well, in order for it to be trespassing, if the land is properly posted.
That's true,
Um,
but they don't have the right to come on land that's not their private property and retrieve their dogs.
That's correct.
Whether you could charge them with trespass or not, they don't have that right.
That's correct.
Okay.
But it has to be posted.
Well, the town could have an ordinance basically saying that for the purposes of hunting, that you would need to have written permission to come in and retrieve your dogs may help with that solution. But they, nobody can just go and say, just because they got dogs loose, that doesn't give anybody a right to enter a person's property. That is still the landowner's domain. And ethically, they need to have permission to come and retrieve their dogs.
Let me just just to concur with the mayor, the hunting club, the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club, has never had caused any problems. I live up very near their Appalachian way up top. They're terrific, but we've had some outlaws in here, and that's where we've got our problems, and that's what we've got to address.
If y'all would too, with the some of the outlaws that are coming in, if you will let us know about it as well, we can curtail some of that along with Montreat's police department. But my officers can come in and actually check these hunters, educate the hunters, and let them know that, if they're not with that club, that, they don't need to be in here. And, or, whatever the town would want us to say. We're, a lot of times we're messengers and we're referees. And it was, I'm thankful to hear what Mr. Gibbs had. And if I was a landowner with that speech that he gave and the way that they do business, I would feel very fortunate in having a club that's that respectful, that's here at this meeting, because they wouldn't be here, if they wasn't concerned. And so having that is wonderful. That right there, by them sitting there, is basically already them saying, hey, we're willing to help. We're willing to do anything, but you will have people that come in here and, they know how many bears are in this area, and they may try to come in here and turn dogs loose. And
They have been coming in here and
yeah,
turning dogs
and
loose.
so that's where we need to be called. And that's where, as citizens, of the area, if they will let us know, we've got a 1-800 number. We're on call 24 hours a day, to please let us know. And it's something that, the town may want to look at, maybe doing an ordinance as far as who can come on here, because that would shut that down.
I think we'll probably do a combination. Just a second. I think we'll probably do a combination. I'm gonna ask Chief Aaron, Dave, if you would see if I found out it was another club, so I believe you could probably find out some names of those people in that other group that came in here and have a heart-to-heart with them and tell them they're not welcome up here anymore. And then we can work on an ordinance. We don't have to worry about it until what, November,
Well, October.
October?
Yeah, generally,
2020.
generally it's middle October through the end of December.
Right. Okay, somebody had their hand up back here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Chad Davis with the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club. Every member has a card in their billfold if they are a member of the Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club. And that's one way that you can find out. And if they have a card in their pocket and they're down here doing what they're not supposed to be, they will no longer be members of Mount Mitchell Bear Hunting Club.
Thank you, sir. Yes,
Will
Mr. Rogers.
y'all make sure, like when y'all have your daily meeting, make sure that the members have that on them? Because I'll notify my officers in that way, and I'll notify the officers in District 8 and McDowell to be looking for that.
Mr. Rogers has the floor right now. Thank you, ma'am.
I wanted to mention that, we've lived here a year and a half. We've had the dogs on our property 3 times. And by on our property, I mean under the patio and on our stairs next to our house. And including that, the one where I showed the video. Also, if it's useful, I've got, because I published the video on YouTube, I blurred, the faces of the hunters, but I've got more video and I've got very clear video of them if anybody wants to try to use that to identify them. At least 2 times I've seen that the trucks were there. In this case, they were right there. And they've got the trackers. So it occurred to me that since they always have trackers, they know if their dogs are on Montreat property. The dogs don't know, but the owners know. And I've heard that that in some cases that they can put like shock collars on them so that they can get the dogs to stop. And it would seem like if we had a rule that said that, okay, if the dogs do come into the town, that they could, remotely get the, shock the dogs so that they do stop the hunt. And then so that they can, properly retrieve them. Because part of the problem too was in our case, they were, and it's the other thing too, which I like what, the president of the hunting association said, these dogs in that video, and I think in one of the other ones, there was not an adult bear. This was a small bear. I mean, they were able to take the bear down, and these hunting dogs aren't that big. So it was a young bear, and it traumatized my wife to watch these dogs mauling this little bear. The other thing I wanted to ask about though is dog hunting like the main way that you hunt bears, or is that like just a partial way? And and then like I said, can we possibly do something about like making rules where they are in more control, like with shock collars or something like that?
Well, there's several ways to hunt bears. Dog hunting is the best. If you look at, or the most productive, if you look out in this country, it's straight up and down. You've got so many laurel thickets, and bears hide in the wooliest places. So the only way really the most effective way is to dog hunt, and dog hunting has been a part of North Carolina since the late 1800s. And, the Plott hound was introduced here. So it goes back a long way, maybe even longer than that, but it's a big mountain tradition. Now we do have still hunting as well, where, somebody will put out non-processed foods and hunt out of a tree stand, but it's very difficult to do that in the mountains. But that's 2 ways to answer that one question. Then the next question, as far as like shocking collars go, you wouldn't be able to get that restrictive, because most shocking collars are only good up to so many, 100 yards, 200-300 yards. And if they're turning loose up on the top, up near the parkway on the toll road, and the dogs are I don't think that would matter.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of wind this down a little bit, Tom.
One question, Captain Helton. We'll do what we can with your suggestions, but for homeowners, if they encounter a situation like the Rogers did, what would you recommend? Number one, stay away from the bears and the dogs, but call the 800 number, get license plate numbers?
Yes, great. That's great. Yes. So, if you're having any kind of problem, whether it's legal or illegal
Yeah.
problems, call us and make us aware of it. If somebody pulls up there in a vehicle, if you can get their plate number, that is big. Because then that limits us out there on a wild goose chase. If you see bears, dogs running bears, don't get in between, okay? Because, it can only get bad from there if you do that. Most of the time, the dogs will be on their way out. So just let them go through. Then if the dogs start becoming a problem and hanging around your house, that's where you can contact us, or you can get the name off of the collar. Most all these dogs have collars with the bear hunter's name, and so whose dog it is that way. You could call us, and we could try to give a message to that bear hunter, or see. We're always going to check them to make sure that they're abiding by state and local laws. But if it is a problem dog, I think the hunter would want to know about it.
Thank you, Captain Hill. Milton, Mr. Colley.
Hi, y'all. Seth Hager from Mountain Retreat Association. I just want to say, Mr. Gibbs and the members, we've had a long partnership with the club.
Thanks.
We've had a good relationship there, and I just want to affirm what you've said, that so much of, there's a good partnership there. We listen to y'all. We take your understanding, and we appreciate the willingness that you've had to work with us over the years as good neighbors. So just a note to say thank you there, and we're willing to work with the town. We're willing to work with the club to continue to make this a better solution.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate that. Captain, I do appreciate your presence, and I appreciate all of you people who have participated in this evening. I think you've given the commissioner some direction of things we can do and will do. I assure you, before October of next year, we will have something in place that the bear hunters that come into Montreat will either be the Mount Mitchell people or the others will be known who they are. Okay.
That sounds
And we
good.
will regulate that.
Thank you for having me come tonight, and just, we're here to help out regardless of what the situation is. I'll give Tom all our contact information and make that 1-800 number available. And just thank y'all.
Thank you, Captain. Do appreciate it. Mary, come on up. Mary Standard, you wanted to speak, didn't you? Well, we got 15 minutes, about 10 or 15 minutes here. So anybody has anything that they wanted to bring before the council or ask the council about, please step up. Raise your hand, let me know.
Yeah, Mary Standard, 118 Shenandoah Terrace. And just thank you to the Bear Club for coming. Lots of good comments. And before turning to town affairs, just like we do have no discharge laws in the town of Montreat. You can't discharge firearms. I think a lot of productive things came out, and want to thank a former council for making sure that we have bear boxes for overnight garbage and for storage. And that was a controversy at a time. So that's a positive. And perhaps as this council considers where they're going next, to have also the number, the 800 number that Captain Milton suggested, put somewhere very prominent, like our police dispatch and our fire dispatch. And also to make sure that we, working with the college and the conference center, make sure we and all those people who are renting houses in Montreat know when the bear hunting season is, and to be super aware of their dogs and their little children, not just as locally, so to incorporate that into your planning programs, but especially the 800 number of who to call and when the bear season starts. So thank you very much for all of that. And now I'm going to do a shift, if I can, to questions about tonight's agenda. And since this is the time that we have to ask questions, I'll sort of make it in the form of the questions. Can y'all hear me? Okay, good. But basically, on tonight's agenda, there's going to be a presentation for the 2020 financial report that was done for the financial reporting for the town of Montreat. This is required by state statute, and it's required to be done in a timely manner. So my focus is on the fact that this is, as I understand it, and after reading what was in the packet, and I assume all of the council members have read that with some detail, that this is the financial report for fiscal year 2019-2020. It's also my understanding that this is long overdue, that we are in violation of state statute. Seriously, it's over a year overdue. I'm unsure of why that happened, and it really
I'll
doesn't.
tell you why, Mary, if you'll hold on a second. First of all, we switched auditing firms. The auditing firm, and then COVID hit. The auditing firm that we switched from sent all their people to work from home. And they did not get the information to the new auditing firm because they didn't have access to the new information. I mean, the old information to get with it. So it went back and forth between two auditing firms for well over a year before we finally were able to force them and get the information that we needed to finally do the report. And that's basically what it was. And we kept the state apprised of what was going on. But all these people, these CPAs were working from home without proper information. Okay,
Well, I hear what you're saying.
but you don't believe it.
Oh, I believe it completely. I believe it, but it still doesn't it doesn't mean that it's okay.
No, it's not
And
okay.
that's
We
the point.
agree that it's not okay.
No, and that's what it's not okay. Not only is it more than a full year overdue, also is my understanding that the report for the 2020-2021 is also significantly overdue at this point.
Yep, because you
And-
can't do one without having the information from the other.
And we, and you as a board are responsible for the
We are,
oversight.
and we're getting that caught up. We've been working with
What,
our staff and so forth, and we should have it caught up shortly, shouldn't we, Alex?
That's right. As you know, the 2020 audit has been submitted to the state and is being presented tonight. The 2021 audit, we've worked with the local government commission and they've set a deadline by June 30th. So we're working to get the June 30th audit. And then immediately after that, we'll be working towards October 31st for the 2022 audit. So we're on a plan. We're working with the local government commission to get caught up.
okay, I
Because
hear,
they're aware of the problem and they're working with us.
I hear what you are saying. And I sympathize with staff and with the commission. Nevertheless, it is a state requirement and state responsibility, and we don't know what the financial status of our town is without these two reports. It has consequences. It really does not, just like the bears come through all on their own, the fact that the firm that we hired and the software that we're using led to the situation where we have two financial plans seriously overdue is not okay. When reading, and I hope each of you have read this in great detail, there were serious problems that were pointed out, or if you took the time to read the 2020 report, which were very disturbing. A couple things, the town fund balance. And I have not heard any of this mentioned in any public session anywhere along the way. So the town as a whole was not kept apprised. that I am aware of in a public matter, and I keep a pretty close eye. So I.
Well, Mary, it's kind of hard to tell the public what's going on when we don't have an audit to tell them.
Or
you know?
even that the audit hasn't been done. That's a simple thing, that it wasn't being done.
I'm not going to argue.
I'm not asking you to argue. I'm making my statement. This is my chance to do this. Our fund balance is at 16%, which is historically low. It is frighteningly low. It is far below the 75 to 80% that is historic for this town. A fund balance is the savings account that we essentially have. That if something happens, we have that to go to. This has not been brought up in the 2 years. You say you didn't know, but that's because the audit wasn't done and nobody knew it wasn't being done. The town itself, a few years ago, voted to have a fund balance of 35%. That was imposed by this council or this administration. They're new members on town. We are now at 16%. We have 2 successive years in which we have no audited report submitted. We have no idea as a town whether we are still at a 16%, whether we are closer to the 8% mandated by the state, or whether we are actually increasing to the 35%. So my point, and I wasn't planning or trying to be controversial, simply stating the fact we do not have any kind of certified audit required by the state for the last 2 years. That is the responsibility of council and of staff. And I understand it's very hard being a council member when you come from very different backgrounds and you are reliant on your staff and the financial matters. It's a tough job. I give you credit for that. However, that has not come up at any point in time, to my knowledge, in the last 2 years, that it was this long and this overdue. I will ask a very specific question. The transmittal letter that's in the package tonight was dated August 25th, 2021. When was this submitted to the state?
So the audit process, first of all, we're not 2 years behind. We're 4 months behind currently in the, as it stands right now.
For the 2020?
For the 2020 audit, we've turned that in. So we're caught up on that. And the 2022 audit is, I'm sorry, the 2021 audit
Is 4 months behind.
So we're not 2 years behind.
We are over a year behind on the 2020
It is
and
complete.
4 months behind on the 2021.
So the audit we have been working on for since July of 2020. So we have been working on it. We've had several issues. The mayor described one of the major issues. We've had several issues that have prevented us from accomplishing that in that time frame. But the process, the different segments of the audit have been written over that course of time and have been worked on over that course of time. So the transmittal letter, I don't remember the date of it. We wrote the transmittal letter.
August 25th, 2021.
So that would be accurate. The submission to the LGC, the final submission. So there was a draft submitted earlier, but the final submission was last month.
Okay, Mary, get your final question in because we're going to see if anybody else has anything.
I'll wait and have more comments during the town council meeting.
Okay, we won't answer those questions. You know that.
I understand that. That's the
Okay,
reason I
just
asked
wanted to
it
make
for my
sure you
comments. That's the
understood.
reason I'm asking
That's
them now.
fine.
And I by no means meant for this to be contentious. I simply meant it to be a statement of fact.
Well, Mary, you act like these people up here don't know all this stuff, and they do know all this stuff.
It has
They-
not been transmitted to the public.
Sorry, Mary. Anybody else have anything? Another public comment? Anyone? Yes, sir.
I just want to say how interesting. I broke it again. Bears have broken our window on our car 3 times getting food. They're smarter than my son. But, oh, sorry. But I just wanted to compliment. This is one of the most I'm not a hunter. I don't like guns. I don't do any of that stuff. I love hiking. And I just think that this was one of the most wonderful discussions I've heard here, where people from different points of view came together and are solving a problem. I just wanted to congratulate both the hunters and the homeowners for this. It was inspiring. I wish the Democrats and Republicans could do the same.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Okay, it's time to adjourn this, and I'm going to call this meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion to adjourn from Mayor Pro Tem Whitmer. Do I have a second? Have a second from Mason Blake. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Before we adjourn, we need to adopt the agenda. We postponed adopting the agenda.
Oh, okay. I thought we did. We did. Okay. All right. Have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. If everyone would stand and face the flag and say the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll start our regular meeting. Stand where you are, bow your head for just a moment. Get started. Amen. Commissioners, you've had a chance to look at the agenda. You've had a chance to look at the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Have a motion from Commissioner Fouché. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Otto. Any discussion? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. The agenda has been adopted. I wanted to mention something. We've had 2 snows. The first snow we had, we ran 3 trucks with 5 men rotating 12-hour shifts for 3 days. Some of these guys only got an hour and a half or 2 hours of sleep because they would be sleeping and then somebody would come in with a truck that had a problem and they would have to get up and fix it and so forth. So there wasn't a lot of sleep during that time. During the second storm, we ran 2 trucks with 2 employees for 6 hours. During the first storm, the wind was a real problem for us in that the wind kept blowing the snow back over the road. So we had to keep after that all those days. Another problem that we have is cars parked in the road. I know in Montreat, if you've got 2 tires off the road, you're supposedly parked off the road. But during a snowstorm, folks, if you'll get your cars completely off the road, you know, like all of us do, that 2 or 3 days ahead of time that this snow is coming, whether it's going to be 2 inches deep or 6 inches deep or 12 inches deep. So for goodness sake, let's get our cars off the road so the guys can do their job. We also used 46 tons of sand, 9,200 pounds of ice melt during those 2 storms. So the guys worked their fannies off, and I want to, you back there? Thank you so much for all y'all done. You wake me up when you go by the house at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning scraping snow, though. Yeah, I bet you do. Okay. Alex, would you like to cover the consent agenda, please, sir, and then go into your town administrator's communications?
Yes, sir. Tonight's consent agenda, you have the January 13th public forum meeting minutes, the January 13th town council meeting minutes, and the January 31st special meeting minutes. That's the public agenda. Tonight, I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce Ben Blackburn, who's here tonight. He is the retired town manager of Cherryville and Lowell. And he is the candidate that's recommended on your agenda tonight for the interim manager position, or interim administrator position, excuse me. I just wanted to thank him for being here and to make that introduction.
You want to stand up and turn around so people know who you are? Thank you, Ben.
And that's it for my my comments tonight.
Okay, commissioners, in your administrative reports, you've gotten your report from the administration, the finance, planning and zoning, police, public works and water, sanitation and streets. Are there any questions and or comments on any of those? Tom?
Alex, I take it Darlene isn't here.
That's correct.
In the financial report, I noticed that we're about $100,000 behind in revenue on a year-to-date basis compared to last year. So my question is that a timing issue, or is there a collections issue? Is there something that we need to be proactive about?
It's not a collections issue, but I'll dig into that and get a report available to you next month.
Any other questions on any of those reports? Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's one of Barry. Hey, Barry, on the miles of road maintained, in your footnote, it said we have 15.46, and that's what's listed for 2021, but 2022 says 17.12.
Yes, ma'am. I just noticed that a little earlier. And for some odd reason, the streets report, when I tally in the data, sometimes it won't come up. It doesn't say. But we have actually, according to our PAL bill, we do have 15.46 miles of road instead of the 17, which I'm glad Tom brought to my attention there. But I'm going to work with Angie and see if we can get the street part to where it will actually save the data for me. So that's the only one, for some reason, I'm having trouble with it to save the actual data I enter.
It's always sort of amazed me that we have that many miles in Montreat.
It is, it's something. And it, to break it down, we've got 14.5 miles of paved and 0.96 miles of gravel.
Say that again, please.
We got 14.5 of paved and 0.96 of gravel. And all this is off of our PAL bill, which the state, you know, we have engineers draw up a map and then the state approves it. And that's how we get our PAL bill funded, is off of the roads.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Public comment. Floor is open.
Good evening. Seth Hagler again, Mountain Retreat Association. Just want to say thank you to Alex and town staff, and especially since he's here to Barry. We had a situation with the tree a week or so ago. Town was extremely helpful, and on behalf of the organization, we just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Talking to Barry earlier today, and he was saying how well that your maintenance crew and our maintenance crew, when we're doing stuff and it's on, you know, close to town property or your property, we work together on those. Mary?
Mary Standard, 118 Shenandoah Terrace. I am going to read a comment about the upcoming audit presentation. At the end of the 3 minutes, please let me know, and I will continue at the end of the second comment period time. Basically, this is something that I wrote after reading the report that was included in this week's packet, and wrote it to a member of the audit committee. The 2019-2020 audit has been included in the February 9th council packet. I have read it and found it concerning. The fact that this audit is over a year in arrears is itself very disturbing. That followed by the fact that the 2020-2021 audit for the town of Montreat is also overdue, can be seen as difficult or poor fiscal responsibility and oversight. Several items were particularly disturbing. The 2020 fund balance fell to 16%, well below historical levels and also well below the 35% fund balance set by the current administration just a few years ago. This was quite astonishing to read, as I do not remember it being addressed to date in a public setting, despite council raising municipal taxes 2 years in a row. 2 years ago, the millage rate was raised from 41 to 43. This is the highest tax rate in the county for municipality. Asheville is at 40 and Black Mountain is at 30. Last year, the council raised taxes for a second time, this year by a slightly different method. The tax rate remained at 43, rather than reducing the rate when property tax values went up after county reassessment. In contrast to Montreat, the Black Mountain Commissioners reduced their millage rate to keep the budget tax neutral. This council had that option. The 2019-2020 report, long overdue, indicated that the Montreat Council was using significant fund balance dollars to cover operating expenses. If this continues, when will the fund balance, the town's savings account, in essence, be depleted? Without the also overdue 2020-2021 audit, how can the council and we, the citizens, know whether the fund balance is continuing to diminish from the disturbingly low 16%, or is it returning to the 35% set by this council? Not good fiscal responsibility and a difficult and unsure place to be. Other comments? Town revenue was not down in 2019-2020 despite COVID-19, even though this has been alluded to in the past as contributing to some of our fiscal difficulties. In the overdue 2020 audit, mention is made that the financial software led to many of the reporting problems. It should not go unnoticed and unacknowledged.
That's been 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on. There's nothing under old business. Did someone raise their hand back there? Okay. Nothing under old business. We'll go to new business. Item A is presentation of fiscal year 2020 audit by Carter. Who's cooking? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me. I hope I can address some of your concerns. Yes, 2020. So we are the new auditors, Carter PC from Asheville. Sorry, am I not quite tall enough? Okay, there we go. We are local. So your previous auditors were out of Hickory. We were hired in the fall of 2020 to conduct the 6/30/2020 audit. In the middle of a pandemic no time is a great time to switch auditors, but in the middle of a pandemic, it makes it even more difficult. As you're aware of some of the issues that occurred, prior auditor communications, us trying to get information from the previous auditor typically goes smoothly. In this particular audit, it did not go as well. We had to enlist the help of Mr. Carmichael to get them to answer our questions, which are required by professional standards. We were finally able to get the information and continue to move forward with the audit. Remote working environment, both from our folks and from your folks. And then the antiquated software, which has been addressed also in the audit report, that for fiscal year 22, new software has been bid out. Some of the other issues that we had, extended medical absences, there's nothing under anyone's control that can take place of that. So once everything was remedied and we were ready to finish the audit, then you guys unfortunately were at the mercy of our schedule. We do about 15 local governments. We do 100 attest engagements on an annual basis. So trying to, if you've ever worked on an audit, it's no simple task just to get it complete. So the fact that 2020 is in arrears, we are continuing to work on 21. We have been in constant communication, as Mr. Carmichael knows, constant communication with the North Carolina Local Government Commission. They know us well, and it's not because they're issues. They know us well because we do audit several municipalities in the state of North Carolina. So when we know that there's an audit in arrears, we are in communications with Sharon Edmondson there. So she and I communicate regularly. This is not, you are not the only municipality that is late. I promise you that. Not that misery loves company, but it's just that COVID has caused major issues. There are circumstances out of everyone's control, and this is the result that's kind of happened with some municipalities. So we did issue our internal control letter. There were some items that were noted, specifically the software, adjusting accounting records, tracking of fund balance restrictions was listed, segregation of duties. Those items were listed in the letter. We went over these. I met via Zoom with the audit committee on, I guess today is Thursday, Tuesday. So earlier this week, and went over the financials and also the internal control letter in great detail. We were happy to report there were no disagreements with management in trying to get the information other than the delays, again, that were noted. So you prepare an annual comprehensive financial report. Not all municipalities used to be called the CAFR. Now it's called the ACFR. So they changed the acronyms just slightly recently, but not all municipalities prepare this extensive annual report. If you noticed your report, it's about 100 pages. I believe numbered pages is around 92, but not all municipalities prepare this level of detail. So you should be commended for that. The budget violation was noted in the financial statements. I mentioned to the audit committee on the internal control letter, just due to the timing of the audit, I would expect that the 2021 internal control letter will be very similar to 2020, just because the timing of everything, and now that we're in your fiscal year 22. We noted the fund balance policy, the late audit, and again, we have committed to a plan to have the 6/30/2021 audit complete by 6/30/22, and to have the 6/30/22 audit timely by the end of the 4th month, so October 31st. It's an aggressive plan. I do believe it is doable. Been in constant communication with Darlene and Getting, and 2021 is rolling forward. So we're happy to report that. Some financial statement highlights for 2020. There were unmodified audit opinion on the government-wide and the major fund statement. So your major funds, as calculated by professional standards, was the general fund, which will always be a major fund, and then the capital projects funds for both the town hall and for public works. Total assets decreased about 100,000, mostly the use of cash to purchase the property and equipment as the new town hall was placed into service. Total liabilities decreased about 115,000. So mostly due to principal payments on your debts. So over the net effect of those, net position decreased about 70,000. So that's the first time in 10 years there's been a decrease in net position, which, given everything we've already talked about, would somewhat be expected. So, but your net position is about 7.6 million as of 6/30/20. A little over 6 million is wrapped up in your investment and capital assets, but your unrestricted net position is still about $1 million. There was a restatement that was required. If you remember note 5 in your financials, Once we finally got the work papers from the prior auditor and looked over the information, there was about $93,000 that had to be restated from 6/30/19, mostly in receivables that were not properly recorded by the prior auditor. Total revenues decreased about 180,000. Expenses increased about 100. Your general, 100,000. Your general fund balance at 6/30/20 was about 700,000. And then from a budget to actual standpoint, your general fund actual revenues were about $2,500 more than budgeted. So about break even on your revenues. Your actual expenses were $100,000 less than your actual budget. Your transfers, which was noted as a budget violation, were about $600,000 more. Again, transferring from your general fund to your other funds, mainly for the capital projects. Water fund assets were about 2.5 million. Liabilities were about 400,000. And so your net position was about $2 million. And the water fund had a net loss, so a decrease in net position of about 11,000, which again is mostly due to depreciation. So a lot of when you're talking about the net loss or a decrease in net position, you always have to consider the depreciation in that, which is that non-cash portion of your expenses that in my GAAP world, my accounting principles world, have to show up anyway. The property valuation for the town is about $247 million at 6/30/20. And you consistently maintain about 100, right at 100% property tax collection for both property taxes and registered motor vehicles. I know governmental financial statements are highly technical, but I want you to get a comfort level that we are working through, we're pushing forward, we're getting these audits called up. It just, the perfect storm happened with COVID and everything else related to these particular audits.
I do have a few questions for you, Livonia, and thank you for being here tonight. On page 10 of the financial analysis report letter, you indicate that the fund balance available in the general fund was $327,068, while the total fund balance reached almost 700,000, which you just said. What's the difference between those two?
That would be anything that was restricted. It would be on page, and I don't know the exact numbered page, but if you find the governmental funds balance sheet, it will have any restricted items. So if it's restricted for cultural and recreation, if it's restricted by state stabilization by statute, so that's a calculation. I believe that number was about 147,000, if I'm remembering correctly. And so the available balance is basically what we would call unrestricted. And the difference in the total would be anything that is restricted. And it would be listed out on page.
Graph 16.
I don't have a copy of the statements in front of me, but it would be the governmental funds balance sheet.
I trust you. Can I ask a few more?
I know it's going to shock you that I don't remember every single number on every single page of the statement.
In the fourth paragraph of your, on page 10, the letter there, you said at June 30, 2020, government funds reported a combined fund balance of $758,465 with a net decrease in the fund balance of $2,305,000 and change. Is that because of the use of those funds for the town hall as well as the Public Works building?
It is, because that's on the modified accrual basis of accounting. And so where full accrual puts everything on the balance sheet, that is actually showing part of those expenditures in for your capital outlay as expenses themselves.
Okay. Couple more.
You're fine.
Okay. Let's see. On page 59, you're showing the general fund. Actually, it starts back further. It starts with revenue on page 57. And if I'm reading this right, total revenues were budgeted at 1,672,000 and change. And the actual was actually higher by a couple $1,000s. But when I look at the budgeted expenditures, it was budgeted at 2,045,000, with the actual being a little less than that. I thought by state statute, we had to have a balanced budget. This does not show that it was balanced, that the expenditures budget was higher than the income budget. Am I wrong on that?
I think that is there's two budget to actual presentations in there. The one that you're looking at, I believe with the budgeted expenses includes the capital outlay. And that's the reason that it would not appear that it was balanced, or if there were any transfers that would be included, or if there were proceeds from debt. So I believe you're looking in the back schedules, and there's also a general fund budget to actual that's closer in the front of your financial statements. And again, I didn't have a copy handy with me when I left to come over today. Oh, okay, thank you. Let me go. Sorry, I'm trying to find this.
As you are, Commissioner. It is a state statute that all North Carolina municipalities adopt by the commissioners or council a balanced budget. So your revenues have to match your expenditures. Now, when you get your financial statements from an audit, you hope that your revenues will exceed your expenditures. Of course, there are always certain situations that makes that different. What we're getting tonight is a financial situation of the town of Montreat, but it is your task, working with staff, to present a balanced budget for consideration of adoption by July 1, unless you go into a interim type budgetary measure. So I hope that may answer your question. Yes, sir, and as well as all the other town finances and assets and liabilities. And that transcends years in some cases.
It transcends understanding too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One last.
Okay, I was gonna say, what you were looking on page 59, you were looking at the variance column versus the budget column. If you look at the budget column at the end of page 59, so because you had fund balance appropriated, it actually does balance. What starts over on page, it's several pages here, starts over on 57.
Right.
So your total revenues were budgeted at 1.672. And then if you continue to go over, your expenses were budgeted at 2 million, but then you had transfers from other funds coming in and then fund balance appropriated, so that your net budget, your change in fund balance is 0. because it's balanced. And that's reflected both on page 59, and then a smaller version of that is on page 19, where you can see your original budget, your final budget, your actual,
Okay,
and then
good.
your variance.
Thanks. And last question,
Mhm.
you had indicated in your earlier remarks that our net position decreased
Yep.
by 70,000. But again, maybe you can clarify the difference between table 1 on page 75 that shows that we actually had an increase of about $7,000 over the previous year. And your table 4 that you were referring to does show that $70,000 loss there. So what is how do I rectify that in my head?
That is because your net position, and this is, when I mentioned the $93,000 restatement that was required for as of 6/30/19, your activity on page 75 is net position government-wide, but it doesn't take into account those restatements. This would be net position as reported on the original report. So that's why it seems that you have 7591 and you increase to 7598, but it's because that original net position isn't restated for that $93,000.
Okay.
These
Thanks.
are historical statistical information as originally reported in the audit.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
I've got just one question, please.
Yes, Mason.
Your report indicated that the unassigned fund balance was 16% versus the requirement of 35%.
Yes.
You indicated that that's being addressed and we're making significant progress with that. I'd like you to confirm that, but also talk to me about what kind of controls we can institute to help us to recognize and react when we see that no sooner rather than later that we're slipping in terms of making sure we comply with that 35%.
The first thing that's going to help is new software. The outdated software does not allow for a lot of real-time reports. And so sometimes the information coming out of the system is not completely accurate because the system, for instance, isn't capable of producing an accounts payable report. And so the accounts payable and the related expenses may not necessarily won't match because of the software. So I think once the software is implemented and you have better data coming out of the system, then that's going to help. And then the corrective action plan, which is all part of anytime there are findings that are required to be reported in the audit, then management has to prepare their corrective action plan. And so reducing expenses, I mean, that's a lot easier said than done for, businesses and personally. So controlling expenses where possible, increasing the revenues. I know that the tax increase, not charging the revenue neutral tax rate whenever the reassessment occurred in Buchan County. So all of that is helping the revenues to get that fund balance back to where it should be. And this is something that we will monitor for each and every audit. So each time there's an audit, all of these items, there will be a late audit finding on the 2021 audit, just because it is post the due date. So it will be in the 2021 audit. And then any of these items that are not remedied, or if there should be other items, would also be reported.
In your preparation to date of the 2021 audit, can you indicate whether you can see that we in fact are approved fund balance requirement?
We are not that far along in the audit. Really, in order to know if the fund balance is, we would have to be basically finished, and any adjustments that needed to be made would have needed to be done at that point. So I do not have an answer for that question at this time.
You, as chairman of the audit committee.
Hold on.
I asked Alex that question. Would you not? Excuse me, Hugh Alexander, Chairman of the Audit Committee. It's a little early for the CPA firm to answer that question, but Alex has indicated that there are funds coming in and that we are making improvements on that 35% requirement.
Thank you, Hugh. Go ahead.
Any other questions?
Anybody else?
I have a question, I guess, for Alex. When will the new software be up and running?
I don't have an answer for that at this point in time. We're looking at an implementation schedule that starts in August. So it will not be implemented for the 2021 audit. Hopefully it will be for the 2022 audit.
Other question? Thank you so much for being here tonight and thank you for a good presentation.
Yes, thank y'all so much.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, item D on the agenda is hiring of Ben T. Blackburn Jr. as interim town administrator. I do want to ask Commissioner, whoever makes the motion, if y'all do make a motion, to add plus mileage to the end of the rate per hour, $50 per hour. He is not going to require a room up here. It's easier for him just to drive back and forth, which is less expensive than a room tonight. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to appoint Benjamin T. Blackburn Jr. as interim town administrator at the rate of $50 per hour plus mileage.
Second.
Have a motion from Commissioner Fouché and a second from Mayor Pro Tem Whitmer. Any discussion? Questions? Let me say this before we vote, that I don't know Ben personally. I know Ben's reputation comes from Gaston County. I knew that he had served as the town manager in Ranlow and in Cherryville, and Cherryville twice, right? And right. And he has an excellent reputation and is very highly recommended by the community of Gaston County. So with that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ben, I guess you've been hired. We need to administer an oath of office now. You want me to do it? Where is it? Okay. I, Benjamin T. Blackburn Jr., swear to affirm.
I, Ben T. Blackburn Jr., swear
That I will support the Constitution of the United States, so help me God.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States, so help me God.
I further solemnly and sincerely swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina
I further solemnly and sincerely swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina,
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established by the government thereof.
which are
Okay.
or may be established for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support and maintain and defend the Constitution of said state,
Not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Ben T. Blackburn Jr., further affirm
I, Ben T. Blackburn Jr., further affirm
that I will well and truly execute the duties of the office of interim town administrator
that I will well and truly execute the duties of the office of interim town administrator
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to law, so help me God.
according to law, so help me God.
Okay, and this is effective the 10th day of February, 2022. Thank you, Ben. I know that you'll serve our community well. Angie, if you'll graph that down there.
Speaking to the mic.
As I stated earlier, I look forward to working again with the commissioners and the town staff, but most importantly, for the betterment of the town of Monterey. Because it's a great town. Alex has showed me around the past several days that I've been fortunate to come up here. And it's a beautiful town with a rich heritage and great people. And I thank you for the honor, Mayor, Commissioners. And I hope I earned the trust of you, the residents, and people and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And welcome aboard. Okay, item C on the agenda is the addition of a member to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to appoint Jean David to a 3-year term ending on January 31st, 2025 to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate #2 member.
We have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Whitmer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Otto. Discussion? Questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. Budget amendment number 5. Alex, you want to explain that?
I do. So the budget amendment number 5 would move $12,500 from the streets capital outlay to the stormwater program. The streets capital outlay has $102,000, or just over $102,000 allocated for the Texas Road Bridge conversion. That project is not going to be started and finished in this fiscal year. So the 12,500 won't be paid out for that project at this point in time. The hope is that our FEMA reimbursements and our second tranche from the ARPA funds will come in at that point in time, and we'll kind of replace those monies or replenish those monies. But this stormwater program is a requirement of our MS4 permit. We have to have a stormwater management plan in place, and this is contracting with the Land of Sky to write that plan to administer our program.
Okay, Alex, no, it doesn't have anything to do with the motion. It has to do with the explanation, but have all the FEMA funds been applied for now?
They've all been applied for. They're in the process of submitting documentation and various forms of various things that have to be signed and submitted. But yes, they've all been applied for.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the amendment?
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Alex, you made a statement that 12,500, that 12.5 would come out of the Texas Road, the 102 of the Texas Road Bridge capital project. And then you said you hope FEMA will replenish, the FEMA funds will replenish those funds that would be essentially borrowed. But what happens if we start, well, and we will start that project probably within the next couple of months. What happens if that FEMA money doesn't come through? Where will we get the 12.5 that we've committed for the bridge and to our residents.
So the $102,000 project won't be paid out by the end of the fiscal year. So where the 102,000 came from prior to this was general fund balance, not general fund balance, but it was not a special fund appropriations, but it was budgeted from the general fund. The hope is that the FEMA dollars and the ARPA dollars will replace it in time so that we don't have to appropriate more general fund dollars for that. But there's room in the budget to do that if we need to appropriate general fund dollars in the upcoming budget to replenish that 12,500.
So are you saying that we could essentially, if we don't get FEMA dollars, that we could essentially set it into the CIP for next year, the capital improvement plan for that 12.5?
It could be done through the capital improvement plan, but it would have to be done through the budget process as well.
Thank you.
So we would just budget it as a capital outlay if we didn't get FEMA funds back.
Correct.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
I'm going to move to approve budget amendment number 5 in the amount of $12,500 to pay for stormwater services contract.
I have a motion from Commissioner Fouché. Do we have a second?
I second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Alexander. Further discussion and or questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ayes carry. Stormwater contract, same 12,500 is just awarding it to Land of Sky to do the stormwater contract. Someone have the urge to make the motion?
I do. I
Jane,
move to approve the stormwater contract with the Land of Sky Council in the amount of $12,500.
I have a motion from Commissioner Alexander. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Blake. I'll get used to having you down there for long. I just have to start writing your name down here, Mason. No. Voice is a little deeper. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Discussion?
Aye. You want discussion? I'm sorry. My bad. All those, open discussion. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm as disappointed as anybody to take any money from the Texas Road Bridge, but I also know how important it is that the planning and zoning gets this support from Land of Sky to do their business. And that is also something that is time sensitive that we need to do now.
Other questions or discussion?
I didn't think we have much of a choice about acting on stormwater. I mean, aren't we down to we have to do something?
We are required to submit the stormwater management plan and to submit the application for the MS4 permit update. And if we were to fail to do that, we would be facing fines from the state.
Further discussion? Other questions?
I'll just say that I voted against the amendment, but I will vote for it for the contract because of what's been said.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes carry. Discussion for manager, council, form of government. In our discussions of hiring a new administrator, we've got an interim right now, but when Alex leaves and before Alex leaves, we will start advertising. And we don't know whether we want to advertise for an administrator or a town manager. There are a few differences in the form of government, but Council, commissioners, I'm going to open the floor for discussion on this subject. Anybody?
Well, Alex, maybe you could sort of give us the spiel that when I asked you about this, I asked you what are the advantages and disadvantages, and you pretty well lined that out. Could you speak to that?
So currently, we're a mayor-council form of government. And under the mayor-council form of government in North Carolina, there's not a lot of specifics in state statutes as to how that is to operate. You're allowed to hire administrator. You don't have to hire administrator. You could take on some of those roles as a council, as individual members. The issue with the changing to a council manager form of government is that it would solidify the roles in state statute. So state statute specifically gives authority and responsibilities to the town manager. An example that would be a difference in Montreat is that hiring and firing would be responsibility of the manager rather than the council. The council would approve the manager and would hire, the manager would report directly to the council. The council could dismiss the manager at any point in time, but the staff underneath the manager would be hired and fired by the manager. A notable difference in the long-term process is that it removes some of the political dynamics from the staff level of the organization. So right now, if one commissioner were to be upset that their road wasn't paved, they can make a motion to remove the streets department from the manager's authority and take on that authority by the commissioner.
The administrator's authority.
Yes, the administrator's support. I'm sorry, I used the term manager. Thank you for correcting that. And it's an unstable environment to recruit a lead for your staff, your administrative staff. It provides an opportunity for the politicians in a community to take over or heavily influence the operations of the staff. And it puts staff under the pressure to respond to that political pressure. To switch to the council manager form of government would provide a stable environment for recruiting to a manager rather than an administrator, where they know that they would have responsibilities under state statutes. For instance, reporting the audit every year is a required state statute by the manager to make those financial reports every year. The responsibilities would be written into state statute, and the roles would be codified. So it would give you a more stable environment for recruitment. It's also a more prestigious position, a town manager rather than town administrator, and that might bring in more interest among candidates as you're recruiting.
And since you've been a town manager and you're now on the payroll.
It'll take a while to get used to the microphone.
And you want to remove your mask?
Now you still want me? I would reiterate again what Alex just said. It takes the politics out of the staff level, and that's a huge detriment when you're trying to serve your constituents and you have that added pressure about what your role and responsibilities and how far that role and responsibility can go out into the community. I think one of the things that I would be really concerned with is that that's the trend now across the United States. It's going to the council manager form of government. I don't want to say that the mayor council forms of government is archaic, but it really is if you look at the numbers. So it's a good move for everyone involved. And it's also beneficial to the elected officials out here, probably just as more so as it is with staff, because it takes you out of all of this day-to-day activities that you're charged with policy, vision, ordinances, seeing that they're completed. But you don't want to be hounded constantly because you've got paid staff to address those concerns. So I think it's a win-win for not only the staff, but for the commissioners and the citizens. So that's just my honest opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Thank you.
outline the process of what that would look like?
Sure.
If the commission were to pursue changing to a council manager form of government, it would essentially be at least a 3-month process. First, you would need to adopt a resolution of intent and to hold a public hearing. So the resolution of intent is to change your form of government. The public hearing would have to be then advertised after the resolution of intent. So it would have to be advertised just like we were holding a public hearing for our ordinance changes when we did planning and zoning ordinance changes. So we'd advertise the public hearing, then we'd hold the public hearing, and then at the next regular meeting after the public hearing, you could hold a vote. So it'd essentially be a 3-month process. It could go longer if the commission decided to stretch that out. But it would require at least 3 months.
Since we are advertising, would we be allowed to put in our advertisement that we're in the process?
Yes.
To attract more applicants?
Absolutely. So you could advertise for a town manager and stipulate in the advertisement that the town is currently a mayor council form of government, but is pursuing a charter amendment to switch to a council manager form of government.
Other questions or comments? This is just discussion only. Hearing none, we'll move on then. Floor is open for public comment. Mary, want to finish up? You're fine.
Thank you. And I want to recognize Tom Frist. I think Tom and I have spent probably as many hours as any other Montreat resident in attending town meetings over many years. So it just struck me as I looked at the group that's here. So thank you, Tom, for that. I want to also particularly thank Commissioners Blake and Commissioner Widmer for their precise and timely questions that they ask about the audit. I particularly want to thank the fact that how do we move forward and how do we recognize and react? And that needs to be incorporated and all of these things made more public as we move forward. You are soon going to be entering budget deliberations for the next fiscal year. You will be flying blind as you move into those discussions because you don't know what the current financial status is based on the fact that we do not have an audit in place, nor will we for the 2021. You will be flying blind. To say that there is a significant increase in the fund balance from the 16% means little. What is significant? Is it 1%, 2%? Are we up to the 35%? So I would, what are you going to do, you as a council? 2 things come to mind before I resume. Minimally, you should have the financial officer here at the meetings, every meeting, so that when questions such as Commissioner Widmer's come up about the finances, the person who is directly in charge, and this seems to be our most critical issue right now, is here. I would ask you to consider that. Also, perhaps consider spending some extra time and reinstitute the agenda meetings so that you have time to look at the agenda, to study it, and to react, and then have your questions rather for the regular meetings. Instead, if you're going to go to a mayor council form of a manager council, you'll have more time to do that. And right now, where we stand, I think it would be well advised. Again, thank you to Commissioner Blake and Commissioner Widmer for their precise questions and timely. And now I'd like to sort of comment. I find myself no more pleased after hearing the audit report than I was before. And I would like to bring up the fact again that the revenue was not down, okay, during the 2020 audit. But I'd like to bring up in the overdue 2020 audit, mention is made that the outdated financial software led to many of the reporting problems in the past and will continue to do so in the future. It should not go unnoticed and unacknowledged that during the budget discussion several years ago, multiple members of the public requested, rather than trimming the needed software from the budget, to instead trim the furniture ordered for the new town hall. After discussion, this council, many of you, voted to cut the software and keep the furniture order. The cost for each was some $55,000. The software is alluded to causing many of these problems. The furniture is what it is. Bottom line, and here we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Seeing no one. There are dates to remember. Communications from the commissioners first. Any commissioner have a communication tonight? See anybody? Okay. Dates to remember, tree board, Tuesday, February 22nd at 9:30 a.m. at the town hall with in-person attendance or Zoom software. All these meetings are either in-person or Zoom software. Board of Adjustment tentatively Thursday, February the 24th at 7 p.m. in the town hall. Montreat Land Care Committee, Wednesday, March the 2nd at 9 a.m. Location is to be determined on that. Planning and Zoning Commission, Thursday, March the 10th at 10:30 a.m. in the town hall. Town Council meeting, Thursday, March the 10th, 7 p.m. town hall with the public forum beginning at 6:30. Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee meeting, Thursday, March the 21st. 21st or 24th? Check that, because it's on a Thursday. And it's 2 weeks from today.
It's March. It's March. March 24th.
Yeah, that's March. That's March. Okay, I'm thinking about February. Okay. All right. March 10th, 10 a.m., Town Hall. Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, like I said again, March 21st, 10 a.m., Town Hall. Tree Board Tuesday, March the 29th, 9:30 a.m. in Town Hall with in-person, all these are in-person attendance and Zoom software, except Land Care. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion from Commissioner Fouché and Commissioner Widmer. Widmer seconded it. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank everybody for coming.